3,000 Years of Longing is directed by Mad Max creator George Miller, which he adapted from A.S. Byatt's short story, The Djinn in the Nightingale's Eye. Since I am not familiar with the source material, I will only be reviewing the movie without reference to Byatt's short story. Tilda Swinton stars as Alethea, a lonely scholar who travels to Istanbul and purchases an antique bottle, where she unknowingly releases a djinn, played by Idris Elba, who offers to grant her 3 wishes. The film is very meta and self-referential in its concern with the myth-making power of stories and storytelling. I love these types of plots that create multiple layers of stories, or involve a story within a story structure, where the character in the story, in this case the djinn, becomes the narrator of another story. The style, themes, and tone of 3,000 Years of Longing felt to me very much like a Terry Gilliam film, particularly reminding me of the adventures of Baron Munchausen. Like Gilliam's Don Quixote-like hero, Munchausen, Miller's film is also concerned with the loss of enchantment in our contemporary era, where our ability to dream, desire, and imagine has increasingly succumbed to the despair and alienation of a cynically hardened modern age that has imprisoned our imaginations, much like the djinn in the bottle. In George Miller's film, wishing becomes akin to storytelling in the sense that both are expressions of desire, a longing for something more than the reality that is given to us by the powers that be. I was also reminded of another iconic fantasy film, Jim Henson's Labyrinth. I found Alethea's connection with the djinn reminiscent of Sarah's relationship with the Goblin King, Jareth. Both the djinn and Jareth are personifications of the imagination, the power of story, as well as figures of temptation, who represent a dark, sexualized world that instills both desire and fear. Like Jareth too, the djinn, as a fairy tale figure of dream and myth, has a sadness about him, because he only exists through the wishes and dreams of those he serves, just as Jareth's power comes through Sarah's belief in him. In a similar way, oblivion or forgetfulness spells death for the djinn in the movie. I thought it was a good idea to juxtapose Alethea's scholarly detachment with the intensely sexual figure of the djinn. He very much personifies Alethea's own romantic longings and suppressed desires. I also like how the film makes you question whether the djinn is an unreliable narrator, whose stories may be just tall tales to instill sympathy and trick Alethea into setting him free. Idris Elba is alternately restrained and explosively passionate as the djinn. He nicely conveys the overriding sense of melancholy and world-weariness underlying the character's fiery, impulsive temperament. As far as criticisms go, Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba are fine in their respective roles, but I found them a little lacking in chemistry. As impressed as I was by the striking visuals, I wasn't particularly moved by the film. The relationship between Alethea and the djinn came off a little too cerebral, and when things finally did heat up between them, it felt a little too reserved and muted. Even the nude scenes between them felt coldly abstract and artificially staged. I wish the passion in some of their scenes were amped up a bit more, but, then again, perhaps it fits Alethea's character that her love of the djinn is aroused primarily through the mind and imagination. On a visual level, the film is a feast for the eyes. The erotic stories told by the djinn, although taking place within a mythically enchanted past, are not escapist flights of fancy that we can easily trivialize as fiction. Miller's fantasy worlds have never felt escapist to me, even in his children's movies like Babe, Pig in the City. The djinn's wish-fulfilling abilities are not without their limitations, since, as he explains to Alethea, he can't grant endless wishes, eternal life, or rid the world of suffering. Not even the djinn and the fantasies he offers can escape from the reality of death, which I think gave the movie some much needed stakes by instilling a fear of loss within its wild and fantastical premise. I also love how Miller often defines his characters through grotesquely exaggerating one trait or feature. For instance, one of the Jinn's stories involves a character whose only trait is his lustful predilection for, let us say, giant-sized women. The Jinn stories have the exotic flavor, supernatural mystery, and sensual extravagance of a tale out of the Arabian Nights. His tales are full of cruelty, lust, and deceit. I think the movie beautifully dramatizes the enchanting, yet dangerous nature of storytelling. The film reminds us how we use stories to organize reality into a mythic structure that reflects our deepest, most forbidden desires. Stories can elevate, empower, and enlighten us, but they can also deceive and imprison us in a fantasy or illusion of our own making, particularly when we use them as a tool of power to control or manipulate another. Perfect movie, but I did appreciate how George Miller is trying to do something different here. He's just not trying to do Mad Max again, and I did appreciate his exploration of storytelling and the power of myth. This is definitely the type of movie that you have to be in the right mood for. It might not be something you want to watch on a weekday or a work week, but if it's a Friday night or you have some time off, then definitely check it out. If you like fantasy, you like Miller, you like all his grotesque extravagances, you might really enjoy this. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and please subscribe if you haven't, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video.